Despite sweeping US sanctions imposed on Russia over the raging Ukraine war, Western cars still managed to reach Moscow roads. The route shifted quietly as China emerged as a backdoor hub for Russia. Tens of thousands of foreign brand vehicles continued reaching Russian buyers amid restrictions. These cars are moved through the grey market channels routed via China. These market systems allowed Russian dealers to source Western cars from Japanese, German and South Korean brands. New registration data indicated that cars were exported through intermediaries. The route often bypassed corporate withdrawal commitments and export controls. Many vehicles were produced in China under joint ventures, whereas others were shipped there before being re-exported to Russia. A rising share included zero-mileage used cars, which are basically vehicles registered on paper but never actually driven by an owner. It's worth mentioning that these used cars were often heavily discounted in China, but in Russia they commanded prices comparable to brand new, never registered vehicles. A sales director of a Moscow car dealership explained how the system operated.
I can't speak for everyone selling cars now, but car imports are currently very high, with vehicles coming from different countries, both new and used. If you look at the latest Avtostat reports, the number of used cars has begun to increase and is showing strong growth. Unfortunately, there are some dishonest players in our market who try to sell used cars as new, but we don't do that.
When data compiled by Autostat, a Russian automotive analytics agency, the figures showed imports from China accounted for a growing share of Western and Japanese brand registrations in Russia. The data also reflected steady volumes of South Korean brands. The data further shows that Western cars made in China and sold in Russia have more than doubled since 2023. According to Autostat, they now make up almost half of the 130,000 cars sold in Russia last year from automakers in sanctioned countries. Well, since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, more than 700,000 cars from these foreign brands have been sold in the country. South Korea, Germany, European Union and Japan have imposed automotive sanctions on Russia. These nations have assured that investigating the potential sanctions violations after China has emerged as primary route of conduit for Russia. The rerouting of foreign automobiles through China showed how market incentives weakened sanctions, so as Western restrictions sharply reduced official exports. The grey market networks built an alternative supply route. China's dual role as a manufacturing base and trade intermediary has made it a pivotal player in the sanctions-era economy. For automakers, unauthorized exports carried reputational and compliance risks, but also exposed the limits of corporate disengagement in interconnected markets. So as commerce shifted into informal networks that were harder to monitor and control. Now, sanctions have withdrawn their map of trade, but they did not seal it completely. In the shadow of restriction, China became the quiet corridor sustaining Russia's auto market.
Power doesn't end quietly. Some deaths are not accidents. They are messages. A gunshot. A crowd. A country frozen. The killer disappears. The questions don't. This is not just about who died. It's about what followed. Governments fell. Armies moved. History rewrote itself. 5 leaders. 5 moments. One pattern. The assassination.